Thanks for the response, everyone. Even if it doesn't solve any of the problems, knowing people are concerned and believe me makes me feel so much better in this mess. Some of you have messaged me asking why I don't just move, and the answer is that I can't afford it. I'm not starving or anything, but I just don't have the money to up and move to a new place. Anyway, even though a few things have happened since the cat incident, it's generally been pretty quiet around here. I assume that the police were all in on it and that I had a good old-fashioned conspiracy on my hands, but now I'm not sure that's true. Since the cat, I've kind of turned into a hermit woman. I've only shown my face during the daylight. I don't answer the door after dark. I obnoxiously and constantly warn my neighbors' kids to stay inside at night. They don't take me seriously, though. How could they? I know how it sounds. I had to break my night rule, though. The night my stupid cat got out. I had left the window open, and apparently she found a way to wriggle through a loose part in the screen that I didn't know about. My blood ran icy when I saw the hole and couldn't find Maeve anywhere. Immediately, the grotesque chorus of that dying cat came back. She was out there somewhere, and in danger. I wasted a good chunk of time panicking and pacing, putting on my coat and taking it off and grabbing my flashlight and then putting it back in the closet. My mind was whirring like an airplane's propellers. Finally, when the gnawing guilt in my belly grew too strong, I pulled my own hair to try to bring myself back to earth. I knew my anxiety could sometimes fill me, like helium in a balloon. It could thrust me skyward and effectively distract me from the real problem. I pinched myself a couple of times. You have to find Maeve. You have to find Maeve. I dug through my junk drawer one last time, and I found what I was looking for. A head flashlight, left behind by a scatterbrain locksmith a couple of years ago. I took a deep breath, preparing to leave the safety of my brightly lit apartment, and stepped out into the chilly night. I moved as quickly as I could without creating too much noise, my ears straining for those strange popping sounds I heard the shadow thing make last time. Maeve wasn't in the front yard. She wasn't in the backyard. She wasn't in the alley. She wasn't underneath my car. My fear was rising by slow degrees as I continued searching. After 30 minutes, I was nearly in tears. I had to quash my panic, however, when a police car cruised by and stopped near me. I suddenly realized how ridiculous I must have looked. Sweatpants, combat boots, visibly upset, carrying 2 flashlights and a third one strapped to my head. The window rolled down and I was temporarily blinded by a flashlight to the face. The officer called out,
"Is everything all right, ma'am?"
"Yes and no," I said, trying to sound calm. My cat got out and I'm trying to find her. No luck so far.
I can't stay if another call comes in, but until then, I'm happy to help if you want.
The officer said kindly.
What's your cat look like?
I tried to refuse his offer, but he wouldn't listen. That was how I ended up prowling around the block with a cop behind me in his cruiser, scanning the sidewalks with flashlights. I strained my ears for the shadow people sounds, but heard nothing. My thoughts ricocheted from, "Please be okay, Maeve, please, I love you, my little kitty," to, "Maeve, you stupid idiot, I hate you so much for making me do this." After a few more minutes of fruitless searching, as we were circling back to my building, I heard familiar meowing. I think that's her," I said, unable to control the excitement in my voice. As I took off toward the sound, I heard the cop get out of his car and do the same. Maeve was curled up underneath the streetlight, lazily pawing at dead leaves as they blew past. She emitted a rumbling growl when I scooped her up, but didn't fight it otherwise. The cruiser pulled up next to me, and I took a few steps toward it, Maeve in my arms. I couldn't help but let my lips stretch into a huge, relieved grin. The smile dropped my face immediately, however, when I heard a strange popping sound, like bones cracking underneath flesh. A scream bubbled up from my throat when I saw a human-shaped shadow on the fence behind me. I knew without looking that there was not a corporeal form casting it. Whipping back to face the cop, I babbled, "Go! Get out of here!" Clutching Maeve, I took off down the sidewalk. It seemed to only take a few seconds before I was running up my front steps and locking the door behind me. All fears about Maeve's safety erased. I tossed her onto the couch and peered out the front window. The police cruiser hadn't moved, but it was moving. It shook violently, and the horn blared. I heard the engine rev and the tires screech as the car shot forward. Then there was the sound of crunching metal as it squarely struck a power line in front of my building. The driver's side door opened, and I heard the cop tumble out, shrieking. The driver's side door opened, and I heard the cop tumble out, shrieking. A few gunshots rang out. I clutched my face helplessly as his screams grew more inhumane, climbing in pitch until they sounded like the miserable squeals of a dying animal. I shuddered and moaned, clutching my face as the cop's cries abruptly stopped. Then, there was a sound like a sack of wet meat being dragged across concrete. Bile rose in the back of my throat as I saw the cop's body being pulled by an amorphous dark shape. A hysterical giggle escaped me as I thought, "It's a murderous manta ray." The giggle turned into a sob, though, when I saw the moonlight on the cop's face. His jaw was slack, his eyes staring at nothing. Blood was splattered across his light blue shirt, and his head lolled as the shadow carelessly hauled him across the street, where the tall old trees furnished a greater darkness. The cop was named Anthony Balducci, and he was 28, 3 years older than me. Nobody can explain what happened to him. Even his brothers in blue don't seem to care. I called the police, of course. I have to admit I wasn't sure if it was a good idea, but what was I supposed to do? The level of concern when they questioned me was ridiculous. TV and real-life experience had taught me that cops are a tight-knit group, and when one of their own gets hurt or dies on the job, they all take it really hard. That wasn't the case this time. The detective who took my statement was so disinterested. You would think I was talking about the history of the Dewey Decimal System instead of the violent and unexplained death of one of their coworkers. I say death only because I know Anthony's dead. The official ruling at this time is that he was in the middle of his shift, crashed his car, and then abandoned it. There was a blurb of an article in the local paper about it, and then nothing. It's like nobody cares. Not even his family. I still think the cops are in on this. I'm just not sure of how many of them or how much they know. I don't know if they have some kind of deal with these shadow things or if they just know that they exist and choose to pretend that they don't. As selfish as I know it is, I'm less afraid now. Because since Anthony's death, I've noticed I have regular visitors. When the sun goes down and the shadows get long, sometimes I can see the shadow of a person outside. Although it's kind of vague, you can easily make out that he's wearing a heavy belt, cluttered with a gun, nightstick, and a taser. Sometimes he's on a fence, or up against a building or a tree. And sometimes there's the shadow of a cat near him.